Everyone knew about my wife Willow's obsession with cleanliness, let alone outsiders, even when I wanted to sleep with her in the past. I had to shower for 8 hours first, and yet, 5 years into our marriage, a newcomer who had only been with the company for a month was now freely entering her office, rummaging through her bag and personal belongings, exhausted from years of being tormented by her obsessive cleanliness. I let out a long breath of relief, so, seizing the opportunity, I decisively gave up, unexpectedly. Willow fell to her knees in tears before me, saying she couldn't live without me. I merely gave a faint smile and said, "This game is over. Time for a new player." Chapter 1. I asked, "Got anything to say?" I pointed to the photo on my phone, my tone flat and indifferent. If it weren't for a casual mention from a subordinate, I never would have imagined it. Someone had entered Willow's office and even taken a photo of her handbag, posing it for the shot. Willow had OCD-level mysophobia. For the past 5 years, no one had ever been allowed into her workspace, much less touch her personal items. Yet this newly hired assistant not only did it, he even posted the photo on Instagram. Makoto didn't expect me to confront him so directly. After a few seconds of stunned silence, he quickly forced a smile, slightly bowed, and said, "President Wong, Miss Liu had an urgent matter. So she asked me to return her handbag to the office, and while I was at it, I made her a cup of coffee." My brows furrowed, thick with skepticism. I asked, "She asked you to make her coffee?" My first reaction was disbelief. What kind of emergency leaves her no time to deliver her own bag? And just how special must their relationship be for her to overcome her aversion to contamination and let an outsider enter and make coffee for her? But faced with an empty room and Makoto's calm composure, I had no choice but to accept this reality, as if worried I hadn't heard him clearly. Makoto leaned a little closer, adding with a sincere tone, "If you don't believe me, you can ask her." Just those few words. But I could hear the smugness and pride underneath. In that instant, it felt like an invisible hand had gripped my heart tight. Rage welled up inside me. A rookie barely a month into the company was now strutting through his female superior's office like he owned the place. Every pore on Makoto's face seemed to scream how cocky and triumphant he was. And me? I was nothing more than a political marriage partner, someone she married as a compromise. I remained silent for a long time, weariness creeping up in my chest. Maybe it was time I re-examined this relationship. If she's in pain, then letting go is the kindest thing I can do. Chapter 2. I said, "I'm asking you, why did you post the photo on Instagram? Don't you realize this is Willow's private office? Answer me." Though my pride pushed me to stay calm, after all, he was just a nobody, not worth my anger. My expression still hardened uncontrollably, and my sharp gaze looked as if it could pierce right through him. Makoto's smile froze. A flicker of awkwardness flashed across his face. He apologized repeatedly. "I'm sorry. It was careless of me. Please forgive me. I promise I won't take any more photos of her office without her permission." As soon as he said that, my fingertips trembled slightly, involuntarily. "He's still thinking about it next time." Makoto lowered his head, saying nothing more, but anyone could feel the challenge and resentment simmering under the surface. I gave a light chuckle, then pushed the cup of freshly brewed coffee toward him and said, "A dirty mug can't be reused. Just throw it out, and now, you can leave." "Oh, okay," I smiled and added, "Don't get the wrong idea. I mean, you're fired. Compensation will be by the book. Go to finance and settle it." Makoto jerked his head up. His face turned red, then pale, his features almost twisted with disbelief. Through clenched teeth, he said, "Mr. Wong, what mistake have I made to deserve this from you?" When I stared at him without blinking, he finally gave a hard nod and forced the words out. "Understood, Mr. Wong." His leather shoes made heavy, deliberate thuds against the floor as he walked away. But just then, Willow pushed open the door, accidentally knocking over the full cup of coffee. Makoto gasped quietly, and the cup shattered on the ground. He quickly said, "I'm sorry, Miss Liu. I didn't mean to break it." Embarrassed, he crouched down in a panic to pick up the pieces, but Willow simply shook her head and said, "It's fine. I was the one in a hurry and bumped into you." She didn't seem upset at all. Instead, she even began to bend down to help. I frowned and said, "Willow." I spoke just in time to stop her. I said, "Let the assistant handle something like this. No need to risk cutting your hand." Willow paused, then nodded gently, her gaze naturally settling on me. She asked, "What brings you here all of a sudden?" When I didn't answer, she gave me a soft smile and sat down beside me. She said, "What could possibly trouble my all-powerful President Wong?" I looked into her eyes and asked, "You had the new assistant deliver your bag, and even make you coffee?" Willow's smile froze. She let out an "oh," and said, "There was a small issue with the project just now, so I had him bring it back for me. You know how it is. Everything happened so fast. I didn't think too much about it." My expression remained cold. I said, "He crossed a line. I don't want anyone else doing the same." Willow nodded with a smile. Gently taking my arm and leaning on me like a docile lover, she said, "Whatever you say, I'll have his pay docked. This won't happen again." Suddenly, I stood up. Leaving her leaning into empty space, I said, "No need. Just get someone else. He's already been fired." The smile vanished from Willow's lips in an instant. She stared at me in disbelief and asked, "What did you say?" Chapter 3. How could you do this? Do you even know how much effort he put in for this position? He has elderly parents to support back home. He came to this unfamiliar city all alone to fight for a future. Just when he finally saw a glimmer of hope, you crushed it like this. For the first time, Willow argued with me, over an outsider. In that moment of confusion, I had the illusion that I was some vicious villain, committing an unforgivable sin just to tear apart a loving couple. I asked, "Are you done? Your emotions are out of control." My cold words made Willow freeze. Her eyes wavered, and after pressing her lips together, she said, "I just think it's unfair to him." I said, "Then stop feeling for him first. How about you try feeling for me instead?" I let out a cold smile and said slowly, word by word, "You are my wife. Even if our marriage was just for the sake of our two families' interests, you are still my wife. These past 5 years, you have never let any strange man get so close to you. Keep in mind, even with me, you've complained more than once about my living habits. But now this man shows up, and you're even willing to throw away your obsession with cleanliness for him." Willow's expression was complex. She stared at me in a daze for a long time before finally saying, "I'm sorry, I didn't think it through. You know I love you very much." I walked over to her, slowly stroked her smooth chin, and gently lifted it. I said, "I don't want even a single nail wedged into our relationship, not even if it's tiny and worthless. I don't want to be the bad guy. But if someone pushes me to that point, I won't mind becoming one." Willow hesitated for a moment, then lightly pursed her lips and smiled sweetly. I understand." Maybe it was because of her obedient, gentle demeanor, but the frown on my face finally eased a bit. I said, "Your Liu family's tech company did pretty well this year. Next year, the Wang family can consider increasing our investment." But she only nodded absent-mindedly, her eyes drifting. Seeing that, my gaze darkened slightly, but I said nothing more. I only hoped she would wake up in time, and not make another mistake. Chapter 4. I thought she would respect my opinion and make Makoto disappear from her life, but to my surprise, she played a trick, demoting him in public while secretly promoting him, treating my words as if they meant nothing. If I hadn't come home early that day, I might not have found out for a long time. Makoto was wearing a sharp suit, personally helping Willow into the car. The most outrageous part, he was sitting in the driver's seat, wearing my sunglasses. I stared in the direction they left, silent for a long time. If there had been a mirror beside me at that moment, I swear it would have reflected a completely different face, dark and twisted. When I returned to the company, I immediately called in my assistant, Law, to look into the matter. Because of our investments, the two companies had close ties, and naturally, there were plenty of colleagues who knew one another. Within a few hours, the assistant handed me a photo. The moment I laid eyes on it, a chill ran through my heart. Inside the blue Porsche, Makoto was driving. The assistant said, "Just a few days ago, Chairwoman Liu fired her former full-time driver and appointed Makoto as her chauffeur. She even said he could drive the car wherever he wanted." Makoto even posted on Instagram, thanking Miss Liu for granting him a new life, wherever he wanted. Those words ignited a sudden, seething rage. That blue Porsche was a birthday gift I gave her last year. She used to treat it with extreme care, taking it for maintenance every month. Even her former professional driver wasn't allowed to touch it, but now she had given a subordinate the right to use it freely. She even granted him complete freedom with it. What exactly was Willow thinking? The gift she once cherished and protected like a treasure lost all its meaning the moment she tossed it to Makoto. This wasn't just provocation, it was betrayal. She forgot her promise to me. She treated my words like air. This time it's the car. What will it be next? As my thoughts churned, another update popped up on Makoto's Instagram. "Picking Miss Liu up from work again today. I hope she'll like the beautiful roses I brought." Within seconds, countless people liked the post, praising him for being thoughtful. That scene felt like a sharp thorn, driven deep into my chest. Willow is my wife. If she makes a mistake, I'll correct it for her. But Makoto, what the hell is he? The privilege he flaunts with such pride means absolutely nothing in front of me. I said, "Notify Liu Tech." In response to the national call for energy conservation and emission reduction, no member of upper management is allowed to commute by private car. Anyone who violates this will bear the consequences, effective immediately. My tone was cool and calm, as if announcing something routine. Since he wants to show off his so-called privileges, let me show him what real privilege looks like. Once the notice went out, it quickly made the trending searches. People were confused but deeply impressed by the power behind the Wang Group. After private cars were banned for commutes, Willow had no choice but to take the car back. Makoto, once her personal driver, became a joke. That afternoon, he stood dumbfounded at the company entrance, wearing a smug smile, only to be kicked out by security on the spot. It said that right after leaving, He immediately deleted his Instagram post and hasn't shown up at the company since. When I heard that, I merely smiled. I wasn't surprised. This company bears the name Wong, and the man in Willow's life also bears the name Wong. Chapter 5. George, what the hell are you trying to do? Willow stormed into the office, face frosty with rage. I continued flipping through the documents in my hands, not even lifting my eyes. I asked, "What are you referring to?" Willow's gaze dropped, frustration written all over her face. "You know what I'm talking about." I slowly raised my head and looked straight into her indignant eyes. I said, "Just asserting my claim, that's all." Her expression froze for a second. Then her voice rose sharply. "He's just an ordinary employee. How could he possibly threaten you? George, aren't you being incredibly petty?" I chuckled. "Yes, he is just an ordinary employee." Suddenly, I got up and walked right in front of her. Locking eyes, I spoke slowly, word by word. If he had just minded his own business, I wouldn't have cared. But unfortunately, someone insisted on backing him up, using her pathetic and foolish sense of sympathy. Willow's body trembled slightly. She tried to stay composed. "I don't know what you're talking about." But the rise and fall of her chest betrayed her true feelings. I gave a soft laugh, casually adding, "He came to you again, didn't he? If I'm not wrong, he's probably pulling the sob story again." "Huh, let me guess. Miss Lou's overflowing saint complex kicked in. So now she's here to seek justice from me." That it. I ignored the increasingly unpleasant look on her face and said everything she didn't want to hear, until finally, her eyes turned red with fury. She smashed the teacup on the table and stormed out. I rubbed my brow, glanced at the wrecked room, and slowly let out a breath. Ever since Makoto showed up, her emotions had become abnormal. Was it really just because he happened to resemble her deceased first love? Chapter 6. Since that argument, Willow hadn't said a single word to me. Our relationship hit rock bottom. Even this major new product launch, she didn't invite me at all. But as one of the investors, it wasn't possible for me to stay uninformed. So, when the launch event began, I instructed my assistant to stream the live broadcast. But the moment that familiar figure appeared on screen, my expression froze. My heart clenched. Willow stood center stage, radiant and elegant. But why was the man beside her, the one holding the documents with such confidence, Makoto? Someone in the crowd asked. "President Liu, for today's launch, why isn't President Wong here?" Willow smiled and replied, "President Wong is busy with other matters, so he won't be attending." Immediately, the live bullet comments exploded. "Power couple energy, perfect match." Another joked, "If I had a wife like that, I'd accept being cheated on and still feel lucky." My assistant's expression changed. She was about to close the stream, but I waved her off. I said, "Keep it playing." Staring at the elegant figure on the screen, I muttered to myself in a daze, "If this is your choice, then I'll respect it." The very next morning, while the buzz from the launch hadn't even faded yet, a breaking news post shot to the top of the trending list. Wong Group Heir seeks female secretary, top performer to be granted residence in the Wong estate. Barely half an hour after the post, Assistant Law called in a panic. Her voice was filled with alarm. She said, "President Wong, something's wrong. President Liu barged into your office. Her emotions are completely out of control." The next second, the phone filled with a hysterical scream. "George, if you don't explain this right now, I'm going to smash your damn office." Chapter 7. Because of one sentence from her, the entire floor emptied out. Everyone knew Willow was the wife of the Wong Group CEO, and her temper was notoriously unpredictable. Pushing open the door, I casually glanced at the shattered porcelain on the floor and said, "That was expensive. You really just had to smash it like that." "George," Willow practically screamed, her eyes blazing with fury. She shouted, "Have you no shame at all? I just wrapped up the product launch, and you turn around and host some secretary contest. You did that just to disgust me, didn't you?" Expressionless, I found a relatively clean spot and sat down. I said, "Choosing a secretary is my right. Are you going to interfere with that too?" She yelled. "You're right." Willow was shaking with rage. She said, "Do I even matter to you as your wife anymore?" I suddenly let out a cold laugh. "So you do remember that you're my wife? At the launch event, weren't you chatting and laughing with Makoto? You seemed to be having a great time." Willow's face turned ugly. "If you hadn't been suppressing and targeting him at every turn, would I have acted that way? Now he's become a pariah in the company. Everyone treats him like a rat crossing the street. All thanks to you. I assigned him to be my assistant. You fired him. I asked him to drive me. You issued an order banning private cars." She bit her lip, each word laced with bitterness. "Do you want to drive him to his death before you're satisfied?" I instinctively took a step back, my gaze toward her slightly dazed. For a moment, I realized I didn't quite recognize her anymore. Where was the gentle, graceful Willow I used to know? It seemed like ever since Makoto showed up, everything had fallen apart. I said, "All right then, you keep mentioning Makoto, he matters to you that much? If that's the case, I'll grant your wish." I took a deep breath, my gaze growing calm again. I said, Go to him. From this moment on, you're free." Willow froze. The words at her lips suddenly stuck in her throat. She asked, "What did you say?" I said. "Didn't catch that." "Then I'll repeat it. From this moment forward, you, Willow, are no longer." Before I could finish, I was cut off. "George, you bastard." A sharp, anguished scream rang out. Willow clutched the sofa with both hands, her eyes brimming with red. "How could you say something so heartless?" I didn't respond. I simply turned to look out the window. Suddenly, a familiar scent drifted over, and slender arms wrapped tightly around me. Willow said, "Hubby, I'm sorry. I know I was wrong." She panicked, her eyes filled with fear. "I won't fight with you over him anymore. Please, forgive me." I let out a sigh, sorrow clouding my eyes, a compromise forced by pressure. How long could it really last? Chapter 8. After the secretary selection campaign was cancelled, Willow kept her promise and no longer contacted Makoto. Assistant Law told me that Makoto refused to give up. He showed up in front of Willow more than once, lamenting the injustices he had suffered, but Willow simply shook her head and walked away, without saying another word. It was easy to imagine the type of man he was, drunk on brief success, then spiraling at the first setback. The days ahead wouldn't be easy for him. Even if Willow didn't say it, I could still see the reluctance in her eyes, in the silence after she came home from work, in the moments that should have belonged to just us as husband and wife. I knew very well, to ignite the resentment buried deep in her heart, all it would take was a single spark, and that spark appeared when I went to pick her up for dinner at my family home. Just as we were leaving work, Makoto suddenly appeared in our line of sight. He staggered a few steps, coughed up a mouthful of blood, and collapsed backward to the ground. Willow panicked, running over like a madwoman, her face filled with fear. "What's wrong with you?" she cried. I don't know." Makoto looked like he was in pain, shaking his head again and again. "I just ate the company-provided meal, and then I started feeling sick." At those words, my brow twitched. I felt a creeping sense of unease. Sure enough, Willow snapped her head up, gritting her teeth as she spat out. "Look what you've done." I frowned, wanting to explain, but Willow wouldn't hear a word. She helped Makoto into the ambulance. The dinner we had planned was completely derailed by the unexpected incident. It wasn't until midnight that Willow finally came home, completely exhausted. The moment she walked through the door, she practically screamed with everything she had. "Did you give the order to feed him spoiled food? How could you be so cruel? Do you even have a conscience?" I glanced at her calmly and said, "I never gave any such order." Still denying it. "If not you, who else has that kind of power?" Willow's face was ice cold, her voice sharp and trembling with rage. "He ate moldy food, developed acute poisoning, and had to have his stomach pumped 3 times. He almost died. Do you understand what almost died means? You're some pampered young master who can't tolerate being hurt, but Makoto is human too. Why should he be the one you get to bully?" I lowered my gaze and stared deeply at the figure in front of me. I asked, "Is that how you see me?" The pain spread slowly, pricking at the edges of my heart. The love I had always been proud of, the belief that our relationship was different from any other arranged marriage. In the end, it was just wishful thinking on my part. Willow replied coldly. "What else would I think?" She said nothing more, slammed the door, and left. I sat down weakly on the sofa, staring at her retreating figure. How did things between us become so absurd? Chapter 9. After that, it was like Willow had become a different person. She began to ignore everything about me, treating me like I didn't exist. Cold, distant, indifferent. When Makoto was discharged from the hospital, Willow personally took him home. She even made him a pot of hot porridge, caring for him with a tenderness that was completely out of character. And that wasn't the end of it. She had Makoto move into a private office and personally took care of every little detail in his space. In every photo she posted online, Makoto's face was present. That blue Porsche. It had now become Makoto's personal ride. Every morning, the familiar roar of the engine echoed around the company building. She was declaring war, in her own way, telling me exactly how she felt. I chose silence. I didn't respond at all. So, she escalated. They went shopping together, attended events together, and even stayed out several nights in a row. Even the way Makoto referred to her on Instagram had changed. From Miss Lou to Will. Everything they did was shown openly to the world. Even though online rumors were spreading like wildfire, she didn't care in the slightest. Until that day, Makoto knocked on my door, grinning, with a battle dress in hand. He said he wanted to give it to my wife. I couldn't hold back anymore. I punched him. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. He wiped it off and smiled even more smugly. He said, "President Wong, I know this pisses you off. Go ahead and hit me. I won't fight back." My fist rose again, but was stopped by a furious voice behind me. "If you touch him again, I swear I'll call the police." The next moment, Willow rushed forward, helping Makoto up and walking him out. I'll never forget the look she gave me before she left. Cold, disgusted, filled with contempt. Chapter 10. I Northwest longer cared how close she and Makoto had become. But I could not tolerate that she handed the newest collaboration project entirely over to Makoto. Who was Makoto? How could someone like him manage such a large-scale operation? If it only involved the Lu Corporation, I wouldn't interfere, but now that Wang Group's interests were entangled, I had to step in. I pushed open the door to Willow's office, and suddenly regretted coming. The environment was still familiar. But now there was an extra desk beside hers. Makoto was seated not far from her, intently reviewing the documents in his hands. When he heard the door open, he merely glanced sideways, then casually lowered his head and continued working, unbothered. Willow's smile faded, and she put on a distant, indifferent look. You looking for me? I couldn't be bothered with pleasantries. Did you assign the latest collaboration project to him? I hadn't said his name, but Willow obviously knew who I meant. And what if I did? Willow lifted her chin slightly. You're from the investor's side. Just worry about the results. You don't need to trouble yourself with anything else. My hand froze in midair. I said, do you even realize what the consequences will be if this fails? A trace of irritation flickered in Willow's calm gaze. She stood up quickly and brushed past me, rolling her eyes. She said, if anything goes wrong, the Lu Corporation will take responsibility. Then her tone turned light, almost cheerful. Makoto, I heard there's a new restaurant nearby. Let's go try it together. The two walked out side by side, like nothing had happened, completely disregarding how I felt. The Lu Corporation will take the fall. I scoffed and walked away as well. The fate of the Wang family would never be left in the hands of outsiders. Chapter 11. 3 days later was Old Master Lu's 80th birthday. Madame Lu personally called and begged me to attend. I didn't want to go, but I couldn't resist her sincere pleading, so I reluctantly agreed. I knew she was hoping the banquet could ease the tension between me and Willow, but what she didn't know was, there was no longer any possibility between us. That evening, I dialed Willow's number, intending for us to go together. 3 calls, and all I got was, the number you're calling is currently in use. I let out a bitter laugh and drove alone to the Lu family's ancestral home. Being one of the most prestigious families in the city, and with such a special occasion, naturally, many elites and nobles showed up to pay their respects. Everyone knew that daytime was for the guests. Only nighttime was reserved for the most important attendees. As soon as I arrived, Madame Lu came out with a smile to welcome me, calling for Willow to come keep me company. I waved it off, intending to leave shortly, but seeing the sadness on Madame Lu's face, I softened and chose to stay. At the banquet, Old Master Lu was beaming with joy. Only I sat to the side, half-heartedly poking at the food in my bowl. Then, Old Master Lu looked toward Willow and said, at my age, what I'm most proud of is my granddaughter. Beautiful, intelligent, and a savvy businesswoman. She fills my heart with joy. Willow glanced at me briefly, then smiled faintly. Grandpa, let me share another piece of good news. Our company recently launched a major project. If it succeeds, the Lu family name will be known across the globe. Old Master Lu was elated, his face glowing red with happiness. Suddenly, a sharp ringtone came from Willow's handbag. She said, it must be the good news. They couldn't wait to tell me. Willow curved her lips into a smile and answered the call, but in the very next second, her smile froze. She abruptly stood up, disbelief written all over her face. What did you say? What are the other firms saying? That's impossible. She hung up the call, and collapsed backward, completely drained of strength. Willow, both her father and mother rushed to catch her, their faces filled with panic. Old Master Lu's expression faltered. Something felt very wrong. He asked, Will, what happened? Willow's eyes were vacant as she softly replied, the project fell apart. Nearly all of the company's funds were invested, and now we can't recover a cent. Madame Lu furrowed her brows. How could something so good suddenly collapse like this? Willow bit her lip. If that were all, it would have been bad enough. But all of the investors have pulled out, and switched to backing our competitor instead. Mr. Lu asked in shock. All the investors? He gasped as if a terrible realization struck him, and turned sharply to look at me. If there was any family powerful enough to influence all the investors, it could only be the Wang family. Willow's face had gone deathly pale. Her eyes pleaded with me as she asked, the Wang group didn't pull out, right? Tell me this is just a misunderstanding. At that moment, every eye in the room was on me. I smiled faintly, raised my glass, and downed the wine, then said, the Wang group did pull out. That was my decision, but you were wrong about one thing. The real farce is our marriage. Chapter 12. The moment I spoke, the entire room erupted. Madame Lu stood up in disbelief, shaking her head at me. Why? She asked. I remained calm and said, ask your daughter what she's done. You'll find your answer. Madame Lu's body trembled. She turned to Willow, gripping her shoulders, anxious and urgent. All these days you've refused to tell us what's really going on at the company. Are you still not going to say it now? Willow's face was pale. Her lips trembled constantly. She said, there's nothing going on between us at all. Seeing this, Madame Lu nearly burst into tears. She raised her hand and slapped Willow across the face. Smack! She shouted furiously. Nothing. And yet the Wong family pulled out their investment. Do you have any idea what we are without the Wong family? We're nothing. A loud ringing echoed in Willow's mind. She stood there in a daze, completely numb. I ignored the commotion, stood up, and gave a slight bow to old Master Lu. I apologize for disrupting your celebration on such an important day. I'll pay my respects another time. Without another word, and without acknowledging old Master Lu's apologies behind me, I turned and left the Lu family estate. Just a few steps out, a frantic voice called after me. I turned around to see Willow chasing after me. Is there something else? I asked. Willow looked panicked, her voice shaking with suppressed sobs. She choked. There really is nothing between me and him. You misunderstood me. Misunderstood. I almost laughed aloud at her words. I said, what kind of misunderstanding allows him to drive your car freely and stroll in and out of your office? What kind of misunderstanding lets you take photos with him in public while ignoring me like I'm invisible? Aren't you the one who's a clean freak? The one who can't stand being touched by men? My voice turned colder and colder. Answer me. Were all those things really just misunderstandings? Willow's voice turned bitter. She grabbed my hand, pleading. Please, listen to me. I know I was wrong. We can talk things through, but you shouldn't have withdrawn the investment. That will ruin the Lu family. I paused, my gaze falling on her as I stood silent for several seconds. Then I let out a mocking laugh. Now you realize it was a mistake. What were you thinking back then? I laughed again. You don't regret what you did. You regret that the Lu family is finished. Willow's eyes were red with tears. She opened her mouth to say something more, but was startled by the loud slam of my car door shutting in her face. The engine roared to life, kicking up clouds of dust as I drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw her collapse helplessly to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. She was no longer the kind of girl who cried and expected someone to comfort her. The next morning, Willow appeared in my office. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her face haggard, and her palms twisted with unease. The moment she saw me, her eyes lit up and she rushed forward. George, enough. I raised my hand, cutting her off coldly. I said, if you came here to say something in hopes of salvaging our relationship, don't bother. I already gave you a chance. You didn't cherish it. So now, all I can say is, sorry, it's over between us. Willow's face turned white, as if she'd just been struck by the weight of 1,000 tons. She staggered back. Don't leave me, please. I really know I was wrong. I gave a cold smile and opened the office door. Miss Lu, I have work to do. Please leave. Willow's body trembled. Her face flushed and paled repeatedly. Then her eyes rolled back, and she fainted. No one knew how much time passed before Willow awoke from unconsciousness. The first word out of her mouth was, George. Madame Lu was sitting beside her. Seeing this, she could only shake her head sadly. It's time to wake up, she said. He doesn't want you anymore. Willow replied. No, that's impossible. He loved me so much. He couldn't possibly not want me. I'm going to find him. I need to explain everything. Her face was full of panic and desperation. As she spoke, she tried to get out of bed, until Madame Lu placed a document in front of her. Her movement froze. Her face drained of all color. Black ink on white paper. 5 bold words cut into her like a knife to the heart. Madame Lu said softly, this is the divorce agreement. If you won't sign it, he's prepared to sue you for infidelity during the marriage. My daughter, you'd better sign it. Chapter 13. Willow refused to sign the divorce papers. She even ran out of the hospital, demanding to see me, when Assistant Law wouldn't let her in. She threatened to jump off the building, saying she'd kill herself if she couldn't see me. After that, she started staying close to me all the time, bringing me tea, doing my laundry, cooking for me. More than once, I coldly told her to leave, but she only smiled and shook her head. As long as there's even the slightest chance you'll forgive me, she said. I will never give up. I began to feel irritated. She got in my way, so she quietly stepped aside, standing far off without crying or making a scene. I locked her out of the house for an entire night. She simply curled up outside the door and stayed there till morning. She thought that by giving even more love, she could make up for the damage she'd done. But even a child understands. Spilled water can never be retrieved. Eventually, Willow signed the divorce agreement. She probably realized, finally, that there was no saving what was already lost. A month later, I returned to our former home to collect my things. But at the door, I saw the last person I wanted to see. Makoto stood there, face full of resentment, repeating, Why? Willow, whom I hadn't seen in days, looked far more worn down. Even the heavy makeup couldn't hide her dark circles, until I appeared before the two of them. Makoto's expression darkened with fury. His face twisted as he shouted at me. Are you satisfied now? I frowned, gave him a cool glance, and said, And who do you think you are? Makoto's lips twitched. Then he threw a punch and lunged at me, but the outcome was obvious. He lay sprawled on the ground, cursing and seething with hatred. Willow's expression was complicated. She stared blankly at my face for a long while, then slowly handed me the divorce agreement. Seeing her signature on the paper, I suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of release. 5 years of love and hate, all gone in that one moment. Our eyes met. All that remained between us was silence. As I turned to leave, she called out to me. She said, "Take care of yourself." I turned slightly and smiled faintly. "You too," I replied. That same afternoon, word spread through the company. Makoto had been fired. Along with the news came solid evidence that Makoto had abused his position and taken bribes. If the project hadn't collapsed, no one might have ever discovered that he had embezzled millions from the company. His reputation was completely destroyed. He was arrested by the police and blacklisted by every company in the industry. Even if he regains freedom someday, it's almost certain no company will ever dare to hire him again. As for Willow, after Lu Corporation's capital chain broke, the family business crumbled. They declared bankruptcy. From once being the heiress of a wealthy, high-profile family, Willow ended up working as a borderline streaming host on live platforms. Eventually, she got banned and moved to underground channels. Later, I heard she went abroad to seek new opportunities, only to fall into a fraud case, almost unable to return. The moment we signed the divorce papers, our lives began heading in completely different directions, and from that point on, our paths were destined never to cross again. By then, the proposal for a new project had arrived. The Wang Group was set to reach new heights. I took a sip of tea, letting the faint aroma linger between my teeth. The sun rose steadily, lighting up the sky. I suddenly smiled, a bright, radiant smile. The world was vast and magnificent, and everything ahead was still filled with hope. The story had reached its end, but my life was only just beginning. It was time for me to go find the happiness that belonged to me.